What's up guys, welcome back to K.D.P programming. Today's video is actually going to be a very short video. In today's video we're actually going to be talking about methods. What is a method? Why do we need method? When to write a method and how to write one. So without wasting any of your time, let's get straight into this. What is a method? Well, a method is nothing but a piece of code that is actually designed to perform a specific function. To give an example, I'll mention one of the methods that we use every day. Think of methods such as your substring, your index, your last index of. You have methods in your math class such as your mean, your max, ceiling, floor, average, square root. You can name them. So like I said, a method it's nothing but a piece of code that is actually designed to perform a specific task. So here, if you look at the image, a method looks something like this, like what we have here in our screen. So a method is actually made of two parts. So we have what we call our method header or our method definition, and we have our method body or the method signature. So the method header, it's where we define things such as your access modifier, your return type, your method name, and the parameter list that you want to pass. And the method body is where the magic happens. It's where you write the piece of code that you want to perform a specific task based on. I'll go through each and every one of these components. So an access specifier or an access modifier is what specifies the accessibility to your method. So you have different types of access modifier. You have what we call public access modifier, and after public we have, I believe we have protected, and then we have private. So these keywords, they actually are just keywords to let you know how your method can be accessed. For public methods, they can be accessed from anywhere in your program. For protected methods, I believe they can be accessed within the very same class and the class that inherits your class. And the private methods, they are only accessible within your class. But I don't want to go too deep into this. This is a topic for another day. So let's move to a return type. So as I said, a method is a code that performs a specific task. So at the end of the day, with a method, sometimes we expect it to return something. So I'll give an example. If you call a function or a method that it's called sum, you expect it to calculate the sum based on a set of numbers and give you the results back. So this is what a return type does. A return type, it's nothing but a keyword that specified what kind of result do you want back. So you can actually choose that you want to return in an integer data type back. That is if you're working with numbers, you can actually return things such as boolean for true or false. You can actually return a string if you're working with characters. You can actually return a whole lot of things, including arrays. So moving on to a method name. A method name, it's nothing but the name that you give to your method. And this has to make sense. Whenever you name a method, whenever you name a class, whenever you name your properties or your variables, always give them names that are meaningful, a name that someone else will read and make it easy for them to understand. So for this method, they named it sum. So I'll assume that it takes certain numbers and add them together and gives you the sum of a data type of int. And last but not least, we have what we call our parameter list. So sometimes when we're working with a method, we actually want to pass some data into it, but it's not always that you want to pass data into a method. You might have a method that's called hello world and has an empty parameter list. So an easy method such as hello world might not calculate anything or might not take anything in the parameter list. What it will do, it will just display a hello world. Just think of something simple like a console write line hello world. It does not take anything in the parameter list, so you can actually write methods without parameters. You are not bound to always pass a parameter in the parameter list. And one thing that I almost forgot to mention is with things such as your access modifiers. So you can see here that they actually specified your access modifier as a public. You can actually choose to omit this, but you must always keep in mind that if you don't specify your access modifiers, by default your access modifier is always private. These are the things that you should know. things such as if you don't specify a number in your integer variable, by default is 0. Such things with booleans, I believe they always give you to a default of false. These are the defaults that you should always know and always keep in mind. So that wraps it all about your method header. Your method header, it's nothing but a set of code that actually specifies your access modifier, your return type, your method name, and your parameter list. And also with the return type, if you're writing a method that you don't want it to return anything, you have to use a keyword that it's called void. So we know that void methods, they do not return anything. So now to your method signature or your method body. Like I said, this part here is where you write your code. This is where the magic actually happens. So if you have, I will take an example with the method that they have here. So in this method, I will assume that the code will be something like A plus B, then which is our sum. So we can have our sum is equal to that, and then our method will actually return the sum, which is calculated here as A plus B. So I would assume that that's what the method does, judging by the name and the variables that have been passed in the parameter list. So why do we actually need methods? So methods actually make our code easy to manage. They actually make our code minimal, and they can be executed as many times as you want. That's the beauty about methods. So you can actually write one method and execute it as many times as you want. So the question is, when do I write a method? That's a good question. Or I always tell people that if you're writing a program or you're writing a game, imagine if you're writing some piece of code and you see yourself writing the same code more than once. You see yourself writing the same code twice or more. Turn that code into a function. So the beauty behind that is, if you had to change something on that specific code, you don't have to change it 2 more times, but you actually have to change it 1 time if you make it a method, and then it changes everything because you'll be referencing the same piece of code over and over again. So without wasting any time, let's just go and have an example where we can actually write a method and see how it looks like. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start writing this code. And one thing that I always like to highlight in these videos is the code might be based on a specific language, but these are not language based videos. These are concept based videos, meaning it might be a C#, it might be in Java, it might be a Python code, but I'm not trying to explain a specific code, I'm trying to explain a concept. So if your language of choice follows the same concept that I'm trying to explain, you are more likely to end up with the same code, but yes, it will differ from here and there, especially with things such as how you define your variables, how you declare your methods in your language. So without wasting any time, let's do this. So imagine if you're writing a game, or you're designing a game that actually is supposed to store names of 2 players. So what we want to do is, let's say let's console, say cw dex console enter player 1 name, then let's store player 1 name in a string like that, and then we console read line, then copy and paste that, best invention by mankind. Let's say player 2 there, change this to player 2. And what we want to do is, after we read the name of player 1 and player 2, what we want to do is, we want to actually postfix the name with some random characters. Let's just say maybe you want to have an hashtag, sorry, an underscore, a hashtag, and maybe some random numbers at the end. So what we want to do is, we'll have something like this, and then we'll say player 1 name is equal to, let's do that, and say player 1 name underscore hashtag, and then we give you some random numbers, then we say random dot next, then we start from let's say 1000 to 9999, then we do the same with the player 2 name. Let's just modify this to player 2, then actually change this as well to player 2. Then now let's just console write and see how the names look like. Let's have player 1 here and do the same with player 2. And now I just want to console read key so that it doesn't immediately closes after executing our code. Let's just execute that and say enter player 1 name. Player 1 name is K, player 2 name daily. So now you can see that what it did is it actually took our input as K, and then for that was the input for player 1 name. Then it took the input for player 2 name as daily, and what it did is it postfixed the names with an underscore, a hashtag, and then some random numbers. This is exactly what we wanted to do. So remember, the reason I say why do we need methods, or when do we need methods? If you look at the code that we have here, this piece of code is actually the same as this piece of code here. I know the name or the variable there it's different, but actually that action it's the same as what is happening here. So imagine now if they say instead of having the underscore here, we don't want the underscore anymore, we just want it to be hashtag then random numbers. What it means is I'll actually have to modify two pieces of code. So I have to modify this code here, and I'll have to modify this code here. But if this was a function, I'll actually have to modify one place. That's one beauty about them, about having methods. So one advice that I said before is if you see yourself writing the same piece of code more than twice, turn that piece of code into a function. So we're going to actually turn this into a function. So what we do is we are going to say, we're going to write our method like let's say public string, because we want our method to return string, and then we say we have to give it a name, something that makes sense. So let's say add random characters. It's supposed to take in a parameter. We are taking the name and we're adding random characters, or we're postfixing it with random characters with the underscore, hashtag, and then random numbers. So what we do is we say our parameter of string, which is name. Then we take this piece of code here. Let's just cut that because we won't need it anymore. This is the end of method. I like to write comments. I know people don't really write comments, but for me it's not that I don't understand what the code does. It's just that it's something that I'm used to. So let's write that there. And what we want to do is we actually want this piece of code here to be modified. So what we need to do is we need to take that and then we paste it there. In here we say name. This is the parameter that we take instead of player 1 name, because we don't have that in the method or in the function. So we say name, and then we return our name. So now here you can see, instead of writing this code twice in our main method, what we did is we made a method or a function that performs that specific task, which is to add random characters to your name and then give you back the name. So now what you do is you call your method, which is add. I can just copy and paste this. Oh, actually this won't actually allow me to do this because I need to set this as a static method. There's a difference between methods and static method, but that is a topic for another day. So what I need to do is I'll say public static. I do that, then I pass it, pass name. I do the same with player 2 name. Let's paste that there, and here we're passing player 2 name. So now if you look at this code, this piece of code here, it's only written once, but it is executed 2 times. And like I said before, if they came back to me and say, hey, the requirement now is to have the name and the underscore, sorry, it's to have the name and the hashtag, get rid of the underscore, I am only going to get rid of the underscore at one place. So I don't have to maintain 2 places, 3 places, because imagine if your game had up to 10 players, you would actually have to modify 10 places to remove that underscore. But having a function or having a method that you can reference over and over again, you actually have to modify 1 place and then it changes everything. So just like here, I modified 1 place where I removed the underscore and just put the underscore back. And then here, I call my method, I pass it the parameter that it expects, and then it does the randomized and it gives me back my value. So now if I have to go and execute this, let's say my player 1 name is K, player 2 name, it's daily. So the outputs still look more or less the same. It actually looks the same as what we had before, but yes, it has different numbers. That is because of the random class that we have. So what the random class does is it generates random numbers from 1000 to 9999. So this is what the random class does. So if you look at this, it is literally the same as what we had before, but then it is executed through a method. So like I said in the beginning of the video, a function or a method, it's a piece of code that is actually designed to perform a specific task, and it can be called and or executed over and over and over again, and it actually makes our code easy to manage. The one advice that I always give people is, if you see yourself writing the same code more than once, turn that into a function or turn that into a method. That will make it easy to manage and it will make it easy to read. So that is for today's video. If you guys have watched this far, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So cheers.